You owe every human being on earth honor and love. But when it comes to access to your life, you need to deliberately determine who you give access to your life, especially private things about your life. Welcome to Intentional Living with Mary. Have you ever ended a conversation and you felt like you overshared, or you felt like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, oh, I shouldn't have said this way, oh, I should have been quiet about this, oh, I shouldn't have responded here? Have you ever felt that way? Yes, I have, severally. In fact, it took me a while to come to that point where I would end a conversation with someone and not feel guilty about the things that I said during the conversation. So I'll be sharing some tips, practical tips that can actually help you get rid of that guilt. I don't mean tell yourself to forget the guilt. I mean get rid of the cause of that guilt. We're going to be looking into reasons or things that could be causing you to overshare and start to feel guilty after your conversations. The first thing I would love you to know is that the root cause of oversharing in conversations is usually an identity crisis or an identity problem. Relax. I'm not saying you have identity crisis. I'm not saying you're a victim of that. It could just be that you are not properly rooted yet in your identity, because that oversharing sometimes come up when you feel that this person is better than I am in this or that, or this person knows more than I do in this or that, and that's why you tend to overshare subconsciously to prove that you also have stuff happening in your life, right? You overshare to prove, not necessarily to them, sometimes to yourself, that, oh, they're not the only ones getting married next year. Oh, they're not the only ones who just got a new car. Or they're not the only ones planning on doing something big next year. You also have that in mind, right? And so you end up oversharing to people you ought not to discuss certain things about your life with. To deal with that, you need to stay grounded in your identity. Who are you? What's your life source? What's sponsoring, or who is sponsoring the life that you're living? Why are you living the life you're living? Why are you on earth? What have you been called to do? What's your purpose in life? Do you have vision for your life? What are your core values? What are the principles by which you live your life? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are those areas of your life where you need to work on? What are you extremely good at? When you find out all these things, you would be better rooted in your identity, and you would not have the need to prove anything to anyone, either subconsciously or consciously. Staying rooted in your identity also empowers you to take charge of your conversations, right? You know where you want this conversation to head. You know the details you want to share, or how far you want it to go, or how deep you want your conversations to be. The second thing that would help you stop oversharing is that it is not your responsibility to keep a conversation alive. Yes, it's normal to get to that point where there's really nothing else to say in this conversation. When you get to that point, don't fight it. When silence starts to creep into your conversations, don't fight it. Just allow it to have its natural course, because experiencing silence or pauses during conversations are actually very healthy to have, right? Relax, I would explain. The degree to which you experience silence while conversing with someone is actually an indication of the level or the depth of vulnerability both of you are willing to give in that relationship or in that conversation, right? So when those silences start to come in, when you notice that your conversations are beginning to take a nose dive and are not as interesting as probably the beginning, don't be ashamed to end the conversation and walk away. Politely, of course. Whenever you get to that point, when that silence is gradually gripping the conversation, and if you try to fight it, that's the point where you start to overshare, because you're trying to bring up anything to just keep the conversation going, and then you wouldn't know when you dive into waters you do not want to swim in with that person. So whenever that silence starts coming, don't fight it. Allow it to take its natural course. It's healthy and is a strong indicator of where you are in your relationship with that person. And that takes me to the next reason you often overshare with people. You fail to put people where they belong in your life, right? And this is not about being proud or being a snob. It's just about setting the right boundaries in your life. Now, not everybody you know or everybody you meet would have equal access to you. It will be unhealthy to give everybody equal access to your life. I've met people who, on our first encounter, they're already sharing very cringy and deep things about themselves that I wouldn't even share with a friend. I mean, you have to be really close for me to share those things with you. But I meet people, and in the first few weeks or days of knowing them, they're already sharing these things. And I feel like, okay, I really didn't need to hear that. That's not because I don't want to be involved in people's lives or I'm too proud to share personal things with people. It's just boundaries. And boundaries are very healthy. Boundaries are lifesavers. The reason you overshare with people most of the times is because you have failed to set the right boundaries with them. So you need to know, who is this person to me? Is this a friend? Is this someone I'm comfortable sharing stuff about my life with? Or would I feel any kind of discomfort or guilt or whatever sharing certain information with this person? Now, you will never be able to come to that point of asking this question if you've not made a practice of vetting your relationships and according them the right level of access. You need to be sure of where you are in people's lives. Don't be in a haste to pour yourself out to people. First of all, you set yourself up for heartbreak, and I'm not talking romantic relationship here. I'm also talking friendship. You set yourself up for heartbreak, for being taken for granted. So allow people prove themselves. Let them show you that you mean something to them. Wait to see them go out of their way to show that this friendship or you mean something to me. Wait to see them do what they wouldn't do to just anybody, right? To prove themselves to you. Let them make the effort to come to you, right? Of course, you make your effort, but you will not push it, especially if you're not seeing similar energy from them. I'm not telling you to wait till people treat you right before you treat them right. You owe every human being on earth honor and love. That's compulsory. But when it comes to access to your life, you need to deliberately sit and determine who you give access to your life, especially private things about your life. When you're able to come to this point of being able to deliberately determine who you give access to, you find that you would no longer be oversharing as you used to. This one blows my mind all the time. It's proper time management. Oh gosh. If you learn to manage your time properly, if you're strict on time management, trust me, all the conversations you have with people will be guided, they will be streamlined, they'll be purposeful. What makes people overshare most times is that they have a lot of time on their hands, and so they are seated with maybe a stranger or someone they just met or someone who is not really close to them. They're talking about this, talking about that, and before you know it, you start going to intricate areas of your life. When you start to manage your time properly, start to schedule every meeting with everyone, every phone call, every conversation you have with people, you would ensure that each conversation has a direction, has a purpose, right? Has a reason, and you're looking out to a specific outcome from each conversation. Now, I'm not saying go ahead and have a boring or planned out life, no, but when you become conscious of the fact that your time is a valuable asset that should not be played or joked around with, you will start to properly curb and guide your conversations in such a way that you never get to overshare anything with anybody, because whenever you're meeting to discuss, you have a purpose for that discussion. Just having that consciousness that this is what you ought to be doing at social time, or after this conversation you have this to do, it just keeps you on track so that you never get to overshare things you don't want to share with people. And this last one is so powerful, and I think it will solve your oversharing problem up to 50%, especially if you're extroverted. And it is to have a circle of close confidants. Nothing beats that. Have people that you're comfortable sharing even the intricate part of your life with. Sometimes oversharing comes from the need to unburden. Things happen to you, you have experiences or you have rush of emotions or feelings that are significant. Sometimes you want to share, and it's normal, it's human. It just shows you're human. You want to share with others, you want to unburden to someone. Sometimes you want to even vent to someone. You want to rant, you want to talk about that thing that got you really upset or that thing that made you really happy. When you have a close circle of confidants, maybe your husband, your wife, your best friend, your parents, your siblings, someone you can always unburden to, someone you can always vent to, right? Someone you can always speak your mind to, and you will not be judged, you will not be condemned. When you have those people around you, you'll be less likely to overshare with people you don't want to overshare with, right? If you don't have such people right now, You don't have to go out to look for anyone to become your confidant. Just look for how you can grow the relationships you have currently. If you find that you have people in your life who truly, truly love you and care about you, see how you can also reciprocate the love and the care they show to you. You can confirm the state of their heart towards you. And once you find it right, don't be ashamed to be vulnerable. I know sometimes we've been hurt by people we decide to be vulnerable to, but don't let that stop you from being vulnerable, because your vulnerability is your humanity. And if you lose that, you lose other very important virtues in life. So I hope these tips would help you stop oversharing. And if eventually you try all these things and you still find that you feel that guilt that you've overshared stuff you shouldn't share, don't beat yourself up, don't wallow in guilt. Just know that if you've done that, it's in the past and you cannot undo it. All you have to do is move forward and look for ways to do better in future. And I hope I'll see you in my next video. Do well to subscribe and like this video. Leave your comment. I want to know what you think about the video. Bye.